Did you know that one toxic person in your life can spike your stress levels higher than a full-blown crisis, turning your days into a living nightmare? It's not an exaggeration, it's a cold, hard fact. If you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast yet, do it now so you catch every episode packed with real talk that changes lives. We're starting a deep dive into a topic that I get asked about constantly: the toxic personalities in your world. And let me be crystal clear, learning how to handle these folks ain't optional, it's a matter of survival. I'm going to arm you with the smartest plays to shut them down without losing your cool, your dignity, or your mind. This isn't just theory. I see this every single day. I had a guest on my show, a woman whose marriage was hanging by a thread. She and her husband were fighting constantly. They were disconnected and the stress was just eating them alive. She thought the problem was her job, the kids, the bills, the usual suspects. But as we started peeling back the layers, the real issue came into focus. It was her so-called best friend. This friend wasn't just a little dramatic. She was a professional crisis artist. Every single day, there was a new catastrophe that only my guest could solve. Every conversation was a monologue about her problems, her drama, her life. And after every interaction, my guest felt exhausted, anxious, and empty. This friend was a full-on energy drain that had been subtly poisoning her life for years, and it nearly cost her the most important relationship she had. So what is it that actually makes a person toxic? It's not just someone you disagree with or who gets on your nerves. We're talking about a pattern of behavior that is deeply harmful to those around them. It's the constant, unending drama they create. It's the slick manipulation they use to get what they want, twisting your words and making you feel guilty for things you never did. It's the shocking way they make everything, every conversation, every event, every success, every failure about them. While leaving you feeling completely and utterly empty, they are emotional vampires, and their favorite meal is your peace of mind. They will quite literally suck you dry. These people don't walk around with a warning label. Trust me, you guys, these folks don't wear a sign. They charm their way in, then bam, you're hooked. They can be your family member, your coworker, your partner, or that friend you've had since kindergarten. They're masters of disguise, cloaking their toxicity in concerned humor, or even victimhood. They'll tell you they're just being honest, or that you're being too sensitive, or that they're the real victim here. By the time you get through getting gaslit by one of these people, you're going to be doubting your own damn name. Ringing any bells? I bet it is. I want you to think about it right now. Who in your life leaves you feeling worse about yourself after you talk to them? Who makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells? Drop a comment below. What's the sneakiest way a toxic person has messed with your head lately? It's time to call it what it is, because awareness is the first step toward freedom. You can't fight an enemy you can't see. And that's exactly what we're going to do. In the chapters ahead, we're diving deep into spotting these folks with pinpoint accuracy. I'll give you the red flags you absolutely cannot ignore. Then we're going to get tactical. We'll focus on building your defenses with rock-solid boundaries that they can't break down. And for those situations where a boundary isn't enough, we'll talk about the ultimate play, kicking M to the curb for good without all the drama and blowback you're afraid of. You deserve a life that is peaceful, authentic, and free of this mess. It's time to stop surviving and start thriving, because toxic people, they can't touch the real you. All right, let's dive right in. You've had the wake-up call, and you know these emotional vampires are out there. But the problem is, they don't come with a warning label tattooed on their forehead. They're sneaky. So, how do you spot them before they sink their teeth into you? You learn the red flags. These aren't just quirks or annoying habits. These are telltale signs of a toxic personality that you absolutely cannot afford to ignore. First up, let's talk about the big one, gaslighting. This is a term that gets thrown around a lot, but I want you to understand what it really is. It's a vicious form of psychological manipulation where someone messes with your head so much that you start to doubt your own perceptions, your memory, and even your sanity. They'll do something outrageous, and when you call them on it, they'll look you dead in the eye and say, "That never happened," or "You're being too sensitive," or my personal favorite, "You're crazy." They'll deny, they'll lie, and they'll twist reality with such conviction that you start to think, well, maybe I am misremembering. Maybe I am overreacting. By the time you get through getting gaslit by one of these people, you'll be doubting your own damn name. It's their number one tool for maintaining control and avoiding accountability. Next is the chronic victim mentality. These people have a PhD in feeling sorry for themselves. Nothing is ever their fault ever. The world is always out to get them. Their boss is an idiot. Their family doesn't understand them. And you're just the latest person to let them down. They are the perpetual heroes in their own twisted, tragic story. They play what I call the but for game. But for my bad luck, I'd be a millionaire. But for you getting that promotion, I would have your job. They drain your energy by constantly demanding sympathy, but they have zero interest in solutions. Why? Because if their problems were solved, they'd lose their favorite role, the martyr. And that brings us to the endless, soul-crushing negativity. Being around these folks is like walking under a permanent rain cloud. They can find the problem in any solution. You could win the lottery, and they'd complain about the taxes. They criticize, they judge, and they gossip relentlessly. This isn't just a bad mood. It's their entire way of operating. They see the world through a lens of contempt, and they want to drag you down into that miserable muck with them. Trust me, you guys, these folks don't wear a sign, they charm their way in, then bam, you're hooked. They might seem exciting, charismatic, or even deeply wounded and in need of your help. But once they're in, the poison starts to seep out. You have to be able to identify the specific type of toxic personality you're dealing with. Let's start with the narcissist. We've talked about these folks on the podcast. You've got your classic chest-thumping narcissist who craves the spotlight and has to be the center of attention at all times. They're grandiose, they have an insatiable need for admiration, and they have absolutely no empathy. If you get a new car, they take it personally. If you succeed, they see it as an attack on them. I once had a woman on the show whose own mother couldn't bring herself to say, "I'm proud of you," when she graduated at the top of her class. Why? Because in the mother's narcissistic mind, her daughter's success was a reflection of her own perceived failures. It was all about her. Then you have the covert narcissist, who is much more subtle. They play the victim, the misunderstood genius. They use pity to hook you, whining about how unappreciated they are, all while secretly believing they're better than everyone else. Then you've got the borderline personality. Dealing with someone with these traits is like being on an emotional roller coaster you can't get off of. They flip like a switch. 1 minute, you are the greatest person in the world, the only one who has ever understood them. The next, for no reason you can identify, you are the enemy, and they unleash a rage on you that is terrifying. They have a deep-seated fear of abandonment, so they'll cling to you, but their emotional instability and impulsivity inevitably push you away, creating the very outcome they dread. I worked with a young man who was in a relationship with a woman like this. He said he lived in a constant state of anxiety, never knowing which version of his girlfriend he was going to come home to. He was walking on eggshells 24/7, and it was destroying him. So why does this stuff escalate? Because ignoring these early warnings is like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. You let the little things slide, you make excuses. Oh, he's just stressed out. She didn't really mean that. They're just having a bad day. Every time you do that, you're sending them a message. Your toxic behavior is acceptable. I will tolerate it. You start to change your behavior to avoid setting them off. You stop sharing your good news to avoid their envy. You stop disagreeing with them to avoid the rage. You give them an inch, and they take a universe. Before you know it, their chaos has become the center of your life. Small issues fester and grow into full-blown crises that sabotage your happiness. Your other relationships and your sense of self, I'm telling you, this is not a game. Ignore this. And you're playing with fire. They'll burn your world down while smealing. They will do it without a second thought because in their world, you are just a supporting character in the movie that's all about them. Okay, so you've learned to spot the poison. You can see the red flags from a mile away. That's a huge step. But spotting a rattlesnake and knowing how to keep it from biting you are two different things. Now we've got to talk about your defense system. We've got to talk about boundaries. Let's get one thing straight right now. Boundaries ain't walls. They're not about shutting people out or being cold and mean. Think of them as your personal force field. They are the invisible line you draw around yourself that says, this is me, that is you. This is what I will accept into my life, and this is what I absolutely will not. It's not about punishment, it's about protection. It's about teaching people how to treat you. And the core rule here is that you have to start by knowing your non-negotiables. What are the things that are so fundamentally important to your well-being that they are not up for debate? Is it being spoken to with respect? Is it having your decisions honored? Is it refusing to be the dumping ground for someone else's constant negativity? You can't defend a line you haven't drawn. Once you know your non-negotiables, you have to be ready to enforce them. This is where people get tripped up. They know what they don't want, but they're terrified of the confrontation. So let's make it simple. You need to have a few clear, concise scripts ready to go. These aren't long, dramatic speeches. They are short, direct, and unapologetic. Here are some you can use. I will not tolerate that kind of talk. This conversation is not productive, so I'm ending it now. I'm not willing to discuss this with you. If you continue to raise your voice, I'm going to leave. Notice what's missing. There's no, I'm sorry, but there's no long-winded explanation. You don't need to justify your boundary. The boundary is the reason. You need to practice saying them without apology. Say them to yourself in the mirror. Say them in the car. Get the words to feel comfortable in your mouth, so when the moment comes, you're not fumbling. You're ready. Now let's talk about what's happening in your brain when you get into it with one of these toxic folks. Their attacks, the criticism, the gaslighting, the drama are designed to trigger your fight or flight response. Your amygdala, the primitive alarm system in your brain, gets hijacked. It floods your system with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart pounds, your breathing gets shallow, and the logical thinking part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, goes completely offline. You're in pure reaction mode. And that's exactly where they want you, because when you're emotional and reactive, you're easy to control. Here's your secret weapon, the 90-second reset. When you feel that emotional wave rising, you need to pause. Don't say a word, just breathe. It takes about 90 seconds for that chemical rush of emotion to move through your body. If you can just stay quiet for that minute and a half, you give the thinking part of your brain a chance to come back online. You move from reacting to responding. That pause is where you take your power back. It keeps you in control, not them. I've seen this work miracles. I had a guest on the show, a man named Mark, whose brother was a master manipulator. The brother would call him up, create some 5-alarm fire, and guilt Mark into giving him money. It was a pattern that had been going on for years and was ruining Mark's finances and his marriage. We worked on a script. The next time the brother called with a crisis, Mark said calmly, "I love you and I am here for you emotionally, but I will not be giving you any more money." That is no longer an option. Of course, the brother exploded. He yelled, he swore, he called Mark every name in the book. In the past, Mark would have caved instantly. But this time he took a breath. He let his brother rage. He just stayed silent for that 90 seconds. When the brother finally ran out of steam, Mark simply repeated, "My decision is final. I am here to talk about anything else, but the money is not up for discussion." It was like watching a vampire get hit with sunlight. The brother didn't know what to do. He sputtered for a minute and then hung up. It took a few more attempts, But when Mark held that boundary like glue, the brothers' calls became less and less frequent. The toxic person scattered like a roach in the light because his source of supply had been cut off. And that brings me to the most important phrase I want you to burn into your brain. You ain't changing them, but you can change how you dance or stop dancing altogether. You will never, ever control a toxic person's behavior. You can't make them nicer. You can't make them more reasonable. You can't make them see the light. Stop trying. The only person you can control in that dynamic is you. Setting a boundary is changing your step in the toxic dance. When they lead with a criticism, instead of stepping back in apology, you stand still and say, I won't be spoken to that way. You've changed the dance. And if they can't find a partner for their toxic tango, they have to go find someone else to dance with. Boundaries are your first and most powerful line of defense. They are the shield that protects your peace, your energy, and your sanity. But let's be honest, boundaries are great, but sometimes you got to go further. Sometimes the person is so deeply toxic, so relentlessly destructive, that just holding a line isn't enough. Sometimes you have to get out of the fire completely. We're talking about cutting ties. And I know that sounds harsh. I know it sounds final. But I'm going to tell you a blunt truth. And I want you to let this sink in deep. Stop needing people who don't need you. It's liberating, trust me. Giving yourself permission to walk away from people who consistently hurt you is one of the most powerful, self-respecting things you will ever do. It's not about hate, it's about health. This isn't something you do on a whim. It's a strategic process. I call it the phased approach. First, you have to assess your circle. I want you to take a hard, honest inventory of the people in your life. Get out a piece of paper and draw 2 columns, energizers and drainers. Who are the people who lift you up, who celebrate your wins, who make you feel good about being you? They go in the first column. So now, who are the people you dread talking to? Who leaves you feeling exhausted, anxious, or small after every interaction? Who's always got a crisis, always needs a favor, always finds a way to make it about them? They go in the second column. Be brutally honest. This list is for your eyes only. Once you've identified the drainers, it's time to phase them out. This doesn't always have to be a dramatic door slamming event. For some, you can use the low contact method, or what I call the slow fade. You get busy. You don't answer their calls right away. You let more time pass between texts. You shorten the visits. You stop being so available. You create distance gradually and deliberately. Often, these one-sided relationships wither on the vine because you've stopped providing the attention and energy they feed on. But for the truly malignant personalities, the relentless manipulators, the abusers, the ones who cause you serious harm, you need to execute a full no-contact clean sweep. This is the digital equivalent of changing the locks. You block their number. You block them on all social media. You send their emails directly to a spam folder. You make a clear, unequivocal decision that this person no longer has access to you, your life, or your mind. It's a full stop. Now, you better believe there's going to be fallout. Toxic people don't just say, oh, okay, I understand, and fade away quietly. They have a vested interest in keeping you hooked. So when you cut that cord, you need to be prepared for their reaction. First, they will rage. They will have an absolute nuclear meltdown. They'll call you, text you, email you from different accounts. They will say the most vicious, hateful things you can imagine. This is called an extinction burst. It's like when you stop putting coins in a vending machine and the machine starts shaking and making noise. The toxic person is losing control, and they are going to throw a world-class tantrum to get it back. Your job: do not engage, do not respond, do not explain. You are a brick wall. Their rage is their problem, not yours. Next, when rage doesn't work, they'll pivot to the guilt trip. Suddenly, they'll be the victim. After everything I've done for you, I can't believe you'd be so cruel. You're tearing this family apart. They will try to make you feel like the worst human being on the planet. This is a calculated play to prey on your empathy. You have to be ready for it. Remind yourself why you made this decision. Remember the pain, the anxiety, the disrespect. You are not being cruel, you are being sane. And if that doesn't work, they will unleash their flying monkeys. This is a term from The Wizard of Oz, and it's when the toxic person recruits other people, friends, family, coworkers, to do their dirty work. These people will come to you delivering messages, pleading the toxic person's case, telling you that you're being unreasonable. They'll say things like, you know how she is, you should just apologize. Or, A's really hurting, you should just call him. You need to have a simple, firm, and repeatable response for these folks. My relationship with that person is private, and I'm not going to discuss it. Don't justify, argue, defend, or explain JAD. You state your boundary and end the conversation. I've seen this play out 1,000 times. I had a guest on the show whose boss was a classic workplace bully. He'd take credit for her work, belittle her in meetings, and send passive-aggressive emails at all hours. She couldn't just quit. So she went low contact. She communicated only in writing. She kept conversations brief and professional. She stopped reacting to his bait. She made herself a boring target, and eventually, he moved on to someone else who would give him the drama he craved. Then there was the family drama queen, a sister who treated my guest like her personal 24/7 crisis hotline. Every day was a new disaster. By going no contact, my guest didn't stop loving her sister, but she stopped participating in the chaos. She had to reclaim her own life. And what about that friend who only calls when they need something? You know the one. They need to borrow money, they need a ride, they need you to listen to them complain for 2 hours. The minute you stop being their personal convenience store, the friendship magically disappears. Here's what I want you to remember, and I want you to say it out loud. You deserve a life free of this mess. Claim it. Don't wait for permission. You don't need a committee to approve your decision to protect your own well-being. This is your life. You are the star of your own show, not a supporting actor in their circus of chaos. Cutting ties is the final, most definitive step in taking back your power. But what happens when you can't completely cut them loose? Cut them loose. But what if they're family or at work? We got strategies for that too. All right, so we've talked about the clean sweep. And for some situations, that's the only answer. But I'm not naive. I know you can't always just cut and run. What happens when the toxic person is your boss and you've got bills to pay? What happens when it's your mother-in-law and you love your spouse? What happens when you share children with them and you're tied together for the next 18 years? You can't escape. You're in a minefield and you have to learn how to walk through it without getting blown up. This is where you stop playing defense and start playing chess. You have to become a pro at managing the unavoidable. Your number one strategy when you can't escape is a technique called gray rocking. I want you to picture it. What's the most boring thing you can think of? A gray rock. It's dull, it's uninteresting, it doesn't do anything. That's who you need to become in your interactions with this person. Toxic people, especially narcissists, feed on drama. They thrive on your emotional reactions, your anger, your tears, your frustration. That's their fuel. Gray rocking is about starving them of that fuel. You make yourself the most boring, unresponsive person they have ever dealt with. When they try to pick a fight, you give one-word answers.
Okay, I see.
You keep your interactions bland, brief, and focused only on necessary logistics. No personal opinions, no emotional details, no defending yourself. You become a human gray rock. They'll try to bait you, they'll poke you, they'll say outrageous things to get a rise out of you. And you just sit there, a boring, uninteresting rock. Trust me, it will drive them nuts. A shark can't survive in a puddle, a drama vampire can't survive without a reaction. They will eventually get bored and go look for a more exciting source of supply. But gray rocking is just the start. You need more tactical tools in your toolbox. First, you need to document everything. This is non-negotiable, especially if you're dealing with a toxic boss or co-parent. Get a notebook or start a private file on your computer. Every time there's an incident, a nasty email, a verbal threat, a lie they told, you write it down, date, time, what happened, what was said, who was there. If it's in writing, save it. Create a paper trail so thick it would choke a horse. This isn't about tattling, it's about protecting yourself. When they inevitably try to twist the truth and paint you as the problem, you will have a cold, hard record of the facts. Next, you need to master the art of using I statements, but not in the way you think. You're not using them to get the toxic person to understand your feelings, because let's be clear, they don't care. You're using them as a tool to deflect their blame games and state your boundaries without escalating the conflict. Instead of saying, "You're always yelling at me," which is an attack, you say, "When the volume gets this loud, I am no longer able to continue the conversation." See the difference? You're not blaming them, you're stating a fact about your own actions. It's a clean, simple way to shut down a confrontation without giving them more ammunition. And you absolutely have to build a support squad. You cannot do this alone. You need one or two trusted friends or a therapist, people who are outside the toxic dynamic that you can vent to. You have to get the poison out. If you keep it all inside, it will eat you alive. This is your team, your sounding board, the people who will remind you that you're not crazy when the gaslighting gets intense. Now let's get into the science of this for a minute. You ever notice how if someone in a room yawns, suddenly you feel like yawning? That's because of something in your brain called mirror neurons. These neurons are designed to help us empathize and connect by mirroring the emotions and actions of people around us. It's a great system when you're surrounded by happy, healthy people. But when you're around a toxic person, their negativity, their anxiety, their rage, it's contagious. Your brain starts to mirror their toxic state. This is why you feel so drained and awful after being around them. Your secret weapon against this is emotional detachment. You have to consciously decide not to pick up what they're putting down. You observe their behavior like a scientist studying a weird bug in a jar. You can say to yourself, "Wow, look at that. They're really spinning out right now." You see the emotion, but you don't let it hook you. You don't let it into your system. I had a guest on the show, a woman named Karen, who was co-parenting with a malignant narcissist. Her ex-husband was a master of manipulation. Every drop off was a drama. He'd criticize her parenting in front of the kids, send her 100 abusive texts a day, and constantly change plans at the last minute to create chaos. Karen was a wreck. We put her on a strict plan. She went full gray rock. All communication was moved to a co-parenting app, so it was documented. Her responses were brief and logistical only. When he'd start his verbal attacks at drop-off, she'd look through him and say, "The kids are ready to go." She didn't engage. She vented to her sister and a therapist, but to her ex, she was a boring gray rock. It took about 6 months, but the change was incredible. He realized he couldn't get a reaction from her anymore, and the high conflict behavior dropped by about 90%. She navigated the minefield and got her peace back, all while protecting her kids from the chaos. You have to remember this, and I mean burn it into your soul. They'd rather watch you bleed out than admit fault. Don't give them the satisfaction. Don't engage in their games. Don't try to get them to see your side. Don't expect an apology. You will never win an argument with a toxic person because they don't operate on logic. They operate on power and control. The only way to win is not to play. Handle them day to day is key, but protecting your inner world, that's where the real power lies. Let's talk about your inner game. After you've been exposed to a toxic person for any length of time, they install a nasty piece of software in your brain. It's a little voice that sounds suspiciously like them, and it plays on a loop. It's the voice that whispers, "Maybe I am too sensitive. Maybe it was my fault. Why does this always happen to me?" You start to believe their distorted narrative. This is the real damage they do. They don't just mess up your life, they mess up your head. So you have to rewrite your self-talk. You have to become the editor of your own thoughts and fire that toxic narrator. This is the core of what we call cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and you don't need to be in a therapist's office to start using it. It's about catching those automatic negative thoughts and busting through their distortions. When that voice says, "Why me?" you have to consciously and deliberately replace it with, "I got this." When it says, "Maybe I deserve that," you shut it down with, "Their behavior is a reflection of them, not an evaluation of me." You have to challenge the lies they've planted. You are not weak for being affected. You are strong for fighting back. You are not crazy. You are a sane person having a normal reaction to an insane situation. But sometimes the wounds are deeper than just negative self-talk. Sometimes dealing with these people leaves behind real trauma. That's where you need to bring in the pros. Let's talk about healing steps. Getting therapy is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of intelligence. It's like having a world-class coach in your corner. For the kind of deep emotional residue that toxic relationships leave, there are powerful options like EMDR, which stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a technique specifically designed to help your brain process and file away traumatic memories so they no longer have a stranglehold on you. It helps you take the emotional charge out of the bad stuff that's happened. And while you're getting professional help, you need to be doing the daily work. I want you to start journaling. I'm not talking about a Dear Diary situation. I'm talking about a field journal for your war against toxicity. This is where you track patterns. When did you feel drained? What was said right before you felt that knot in your stomach? You start to see their playbook written out in black and white. But more importantly, you track your wins. Today, they tried to guilt me, and I held my boundary. Today, I used the 90-second reset and didn't take the bait. This journal becomes the evidence of your growing strength. As you heal, you have to build resilience. You can't just play defense. You have to build a life that is so full of good things that the toxicity can't find any room to grow. You need to double down on your support squad. Surround yourself with those energizers from your list. Fill your life with positive folks who see you, who value you, and who celebrate you. You also need to set powerful intentions for your own life. What do you want? Who do you want to be? You start setting goals that have nothing to do with them. You make yourself irreplaceable in your life, not theirs. I had a client, let's call her Sarah. She had been married to a covert narcissist for over a decade. He had done such a number on her that she truly believed she was incompetent. She second-guessed every decision, from what to make for dinner to whether she was a good mother. Her identity had been completely swallowed by his toxicity. She was defined by his constant, subtle criticism. When she finally came to see me, she was a shell of a person. The change didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, deliberate process. She started therapy. She started a journal. Her first entry was just one sentence. He said I was being ridiculous for wanting to go back to school. A month later, her entry read, tried to make me feel guilty about my night class. I went anyway. I felt powerful. She was rewriting her inner script. One thought at a time, she started spending more time with a friend who was an energizer, someone who told her she was smart and capable. Slowly but surely, Sarah started to believe it. The flip happened when her husband launched into one of his classic pity parties about how her school was taking time away from him. Instead of apologizing, she looked at him and said calmly, "My education is important to me, and I am not going to feel guilty about it." He was stunned into silence. In that moment, she became unbreakable. She had fortified her mind. And that's what this is all about. This is your rally cry. You're unique. Brilliant. Don't let these vampires dim your light. They want you to believe you are small so they can feel big. It's a lie. You were a whole, complete, and valuable person before they ever slithered into your life, and you will be long after they're gone. You've got to armor up inside, because that's where your true power lies. But sometimes you need outside help to protect that inner peace. Sometimes you need to bring in the big guns. And that's what we're talking about next, the legal and digital firepower. You need to lock it all down. All right, you've armored up your mind. You've got your internal shield polished and ready. But in today's world, the battlefront isn't just in your head or in your living room. It's online, it's in the courthouse, and it's in the story you tell yourself for years to come. This is where we lock down the perimeter for good. We're talking about bringing in the heavy artillery, the legal, digital, and long-term strategies that give you the ultimate win. Sometimes their behavior crosses a line from just being toxic to being illegal. And when that happens, you need to go pro. I'm talking about lawyering up. This isn't about revenge. It's about protecting your safety, your reputation, and your future. When do you make that call? If you're dealing with workplace harassment that your HR department is ignoring. If an ex-partner is spreading lies about you that are damaging your career, that's defamation. If you're in a custody battle with a toxic co-parent who is using the children as pawns, these are not situations you handle on your own. Your first strike is often a cease and desist letter. This is a formal letter from your attorney telling the toxic person, in no uncertain terms, to stop their harassing behavior immediately or face further legal action. It's a legal shot across the bow. And let me tell you, nothing gets a bully's attention faster than a letter with a lawyer's name at the top. It tells them the game has changed. You're no longer playing by their rules. You're playing by the rules of the law, and you've got a professional in your corner. Now let's talk about the digital battlefield. In this day and age, a toxic person can harass you 24/7 without ever leaving their couch. Your phone, your social media, it's all a potential gateway for their poison. You need a rock-solid digital defense. This starts with the basics: block, report, and scrub. You block their phone number, their email, and every single social media profile they have. And when they create new ones to get to you, you block those too. No warnings, no explanations, just block. On platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and others, use the reporting tools. If they're sending abusive messages or posting lies about you, report it. These platforms have policies against harassment, and you need to use them. But don't stop there. You need to scrub your online presence. Go through your own accounts and tighten up your privacy settings. Who can see your posts? Who can tag you in photos? Limit everything to trusted friends only. Think of it as building a digital fortress. You control who gets through the gate. Don't give them any windows to peer through. Getting them out of your life is a huge victory, but the war isn't over. Now comes the most important part, the long-haul rebuild. You've been through a storm, and now you have to rebuild your house on a stronger foundation. This is where you find your tribe. I want you to look for support groups, either in person or online. Find communities of people who have been through what you've been through. There is incredible power in hearing someone else tell your story. It validates your experience and makes you realize you are not alone. These are the people who get it in a way no one else can. This is also where you redefine your identity as a survivor, not a victim. A victim is someone who is defined by what happened to them. A survivor is someone who is defined by how they overcame it. You are not damaged goods. You are a warrior who has been through battle and come out the other side stronger and wiser. You have to own that narrative. And part of that wisdom is learning to spot red flags in new relationships. Your toxic person radar is now finely tuned. Don't ignore it. When you meet new people, listen to your gut. Do they respect your boundaries from the beginning? Do they take accountability for their actions? Are they an energizer or a drainer? You've earned your degree from the University of Hard Knocks, and now you have the wisdom to choose healthy reciprocal relationships. I got an email from a listener of the podcast a few months ago. Let's call him David. He had spent years under the thumb of a toxic friend who was also his business partner. This guy was a classic covert narcissist, always the victim, always subtly undermining David's confidence, always making David feel like he was the lucky one in the partnership. The business was failing, and David's self-esteem was in the toilet. After listening to this series, he said it was like a light bulb went off. He finally saw the manipulation for what it was. He went pro. He hired a lawyer and a forensic accountant to dissolve the partnership cleanly. He went no contact, blocking his ex-partner on everything. He joined a support group for entrepreneurs and found a community of positive, driven people. He told me the first few months were hell. The ex-partner tried everything: rage, guilt, smear campaigns. But David held the line. His closing line to me was this: Dr. Phil, for the first time in a decade, I feel peace. I'm starting a new business, and this time it's built on my own strength, not someone else's shadow. I'm not just surviving, I'm finally thriving. That right there is proof that it works. So here are my final calls to you. Hey, if this hit home, if you saw yourself in any of these stories, do me a favor. Leave a review on the podcast. Share this with someone you know who is fighting the same fight. You could be the wake-up call they need. And make sure you tune in next time, because we're going to be talking about dodging those post-toxic pitfalls and making sure you never fall into the same trap again. I want to leave you with this. This journey is about one thing: reclaiming your life. You are taking back the power, the peace, and the joy that was stolen from you. So let's get this straight. You ain't just surviving, you're thriving, because toxic people, they can't touch the real you.